Where do I got the code, but I'm not sure what to do with it.
Go to participants, and then
Okay.
there's a button at the bottom of participants that says claim host.
Perfect.
Put in the code and then pause
Ah,
the recording. There you
Hello, everyone. Welcome to January 22nd, LFT Decentralized Trust Technical Advisory Council meeting, and really appreciate making yourself available at this change time and appreciate flexibility in attending the meeting. But before we get started, quick couple of reminders. We all come from different background, different organizations. We do represent different um, geographies. So we have a couple of things. One is the antitrust policy. All the meetings in the foundation, we ensure that we adhere to all the antitrust policy across the globe for all the parts, so that all participants are welcome. And the second one is about uh, welcoming everyone. We understand cultural differences, but we do really appreciate making the participation welcoming for everyone, making these meetings open for all. So with that, let's jump to the announcement sections for today. And as usual, as we all say, we have an excellent opportunity to connect with a large developer community. And if you have anything related to your project, it could be that you're looking for comments on your RFCs or comments on your pull requests or your design practices, or you're looking just for involvement from a large community, or you want to promote your project regarding some feature set. This is an excellent opportunity. Or if you even want to organize a meetup or like talking about your project, please do make use of this opportunity. Like you will have communication sent out to a large developer um, forum. All you have to do is go to the link that is pasted on the agenda and leave your note in the comment section. And next thing you will say is by the weekend, you will have that communicated out to a large developer community. And the second announcement we have today is for the maintainer days. We are all looking forward to it, and it's very close. It's next week, and I'm sure majority of you will be there along with other maintainers from multiple projects, and also potential project maintainers, the future project maintainers. We all look forward to seeing you there. But if you have not already done so, or if the project teams are ready to do so, please do register at the earliest so that we can all meet in person very soon. And the third announcement that we have for today, I wanted to propose that since we are all meeting next week in person at the LFTT Member Summit, we will pause our meetings on January 29th and we'll resume it the week after. And when we pause the meetings, all the due reports which we were supposed to review by next week will automatically get an extension until the time like TAC gets back on February 5th. That's the proposal. I'll take a pause here and I want to hear back from any of the TAC members. And if you have any other announcements to be made, or if you have any questions on any of this so far.
So Arun and everyone else, I will not be in attendance at the in-person summit, but I'm quite okay with having a week off. So please enjoy yourselves, and wish I could be there.
We'll miss you, Dan. For sure, last year we had great insights from you. So I'll take that as we don't have other announcements for today. So I'll jump into quarterly reports. So I saw majority of the TAC members have approved for the Firefly report. However, we are waiting for the project team to fix an indentation issue or probably in the pull request. I would request if that can be taken care so that we can merge the pull request. And we did receive trust over IP report the last week. I know we were all looking forward to the project team submitting the report. the same time, we also received reports, I guess, yesterday from Credible team. And um, I know, like Dan, you wanted to deep dive on trust over IP report. I'm not sure if you wanted to communicate something this week or maybe in the week after that. But I know, sorry, yeah, go on.
I'm okay. I put a comment on the Trust over IP report, and I have been attending some of the Trust over IP reports, and I'm on a number of their newsletters or updates. So I'm okay talking about it a little bit today if people want to, and then maybe everybody could, if they have time, take a deeper dive into the report and add their comments and review. And then maybe by next week or the week while you're there in person, you can convey any feedback you have to them, because some of them should be represented at the event. So I'm happy to talk a little bit about it and set the stage for those conversations.
Sure. Yeah, go on.
So if you take a look at the comment that I made, I think that it shows sustained momentum of the real over the very kind of maybe tumultuous and very busy year for the Trust over IP folks. And shifting into the LFDT has been a little technical difficulties in understanding our reporting process. And I think that's where I'm focusing on in this, and the feedback on them is how they could make the future reports and maybe their annual report a little bit stronger and easier for TAC members and the LFDT community at large to consume. They Most of the reports that are linked to in there I have seen over the past year, but it's kind of hard for me to tell what progress is actually being made. Not that there isn't progress, just that from reading it, it's hard, to understand what's getting, how close things are to being in adoption and real world use. So I've added a few comments in there, not for this one, but for future updates. Hopefully, the annual reports is to a little bit more of more, not even verbosity, but just a single sentence or two framing each of the sections that they have for each of the major specs about what the status is, and that would make it much easier for all of us to consume without having to drill down into all the links on all the reports, which there are many, and there have been. So that would make it helpful. At this point, I think it's pretty much reflects an active and a healthy report project. And it looks like a lot is going to happen in 2026. So I'm okay moving forward and approving this. I'm not a technical expert in anything. The only one that I'm really is near and dear to my heart is the did skid specs and processes. So, and from what I can see, that's been active and is moving towards some semblance of adoption by a number of folks. So I'm okay with that. Moving it forward. And I would encourage people to take a look at it. But as they did ask for some help, and you can see in the comments, Daniela has, mentioned that the staff is tracking those requests for help and been connecting with them on each of those things. So I would, definitely give my approval to this Q4 report and work with them. And I will attend their steering committee meetings, upcoming ones. And continue to keep abreast on what they're doing. But yeah, the report is, for a standards group, it's what I would expect. I'd just like a little bit more. I guess the way that it's a very cause and effect narrative that we normally use in code development projects, and it's easier to metric things in code development projects. But I think it's still difficult to see measurable progress. And, I know that's tough. And a lot, they're using some of the Atlassian tools and not GitHub for that. But when you go through and look, you can see more than a few members working on the different projects and commenting and updating. But it would be really kind of good to kind of walk through, try and get beyond the largely list of links to specifications and tools and video lists and things like that, to kind of get a minimal description of what materially changed in the quarter, and how close some of them are to real use work. But I think that's just a learning curve. And it's, as again, we keep saying it's a standards project, so it kind of, the best way I could say it is it lacks temporal signs, or lacks the metrics that I love, and near how fast the specs are moving and whether it's plateauing or not. So that's really it's kind of hard to assess whether it's a healthy, stalled, or accelerating project just from this report. So if I hadn't been on a few meetings and calls, and if I hadn't been following some of these topics a little bit closely, I don't think I would be able to tell exactly from the Q4 report that. But having participated in it slightly over around the edges, I think I'm happy to approve this Q4 report. Any questions from anyone?
Thank you, Diane, for the detailed deep dive on the report. And I really appreciate it. And I do understand the question. And for sure, we can bring it up to the project team next week during maintainer days and also during member summit. And we can request them to see how it can be, how the progress over a period of time in a quarter can be measured, and have those signals of what specific things were progressed in that quarter.
Cool. And Arun, I shared with you my notes beyond the comments, so you're welcome to share them with others when you're there, or use them as part of the conversation.
It's definitely a good feedback. Thank you, Diane. And really appreciate also David and Daniela for taking through the request that the project team had and addressing them. So with that, unless there are more questions or on the reports, we can jump to the next part of the agenda. So we do have annual reports starting starting today. And I haven't heard back any other objections other than the initial one that we had, like request to change the project team allocation. So I'll assume the TAC members are aware of the projects that they are evaluating, and I would also make best efforts to notify them as possible. And looking forward to Fabric and the Cacti team reports. I know Rama, you mentioned that you'll be working with the rest of the maintainers and submitting the report very soon. We look forward to that. So with that, let's move to the next part of the agenda. And as we communicated last time, I wanted to have a summary of what's happening within the lab space so that we all get to know if there is anything needing our attention. As of now, I don't see anything that needs attention from any of us. I do see there are a number of proposals from a particular submitter, and I would request, if you're connected to them, please do let them know that they do have action items on those proposals. And I do see a number of proposals from them related to the same thing. And this is mostly on the Hyperledger Fabric Flutter client related things. So that's pretty much it. At least, like, we don't have any actions to be done from a TAC, or like the proposals needing attention. With that, let's move to the discussion items for today. And we do have Panchan joining us for the first time. So I would warm welcome to her, and welcome to the TAC.
Thanks, Arun. Nice to do this live and not watch the recording. So, and appreciate moving the meeting times for me. Thanks for that.
Welcome again. Would you, so generally, when we have new TAC members, we want to hear them in terms of what they would like to see, what they have vision for, and how would they like to contribute, or are there any aspects that they want to bring in to the governments? So we would like to hear from you, if you're prepared now, or otherwise, at least the next time.
Yeah, probably the next time. I think this first meeting is just a learning experience for me, and probably I'll have more to contribute next time.
Thank you. For sure, we look forward to hearing from you next time. So with that, let's go to the agenda items for today. We do have, I wanted to have more of a for your information kind of a notification to the TAG and also all other project team members who are listening to this. This is related to availability of like GitHub as asynchronous voting mechanism. So from what I understand, the summary is that there are a couple of ways, or maybe like that's what I infer from the one that I saw. You could open issues, or you could have pull request basis voting, and the voting itself can be done via people participating through a comment, or maybe by having emojis, um, kind of like liking the symbol on that particular comment that you have. And that's the way the counting would happen, and the counting would be open for a period of time. And at the end of the voting period, whatever be the count, it will be posted as a comment either on the pull request or the issue itself. And what we get to see is the final summary of how did, let's say, if it is a decision of a TAC, or if it's a decision of project TSC or the maintainers, what is the outcome of that quorum is what we get to see at the end of it. And this is an interesting thing, or an interesting topic. If you're not familiar with it, I would suggest have a look at the pull request and look through them. Or if you have any questions, please feel free to bring them up. It'll take maybe a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds past to hear if anybody has any questions on this for now. I don't hear any questions, but please do adopt wherever possible. This is really helpful utility and the tool for us also within the TAG, so that we can have these decisions made asynchronously and capture those decisions in a formal way. With that, let's move to the goal setting and the planning session for 2026. I know in the past week we did cover a couple of topics from here. Couple of themes that we call. So quick summary or the quick background of what this is. And what I did was went through the nomination statements from all the TAC members and tried to extract what each of the TAC member would like to bring in or would like to see a change in, and coupled that with outcomes as part of our retrospection that we had, and tried to come up with the themes around which we want to work set the goals for this year. And the columns that you see in this page are mostly the themes. And within each of those columns, the boxes, the green color, the colored ones that you see, those are kind of areas that I saw mostly the TAC members were interested to tackle as part of this. And what we are doing is go through these themes and listen to TAC members. And while we do that, I'm also making a note, and maybe towards end of this, I'll share all the notes that I have prepared, and we will set the goals for this year from the TAC based on outcome of that notes. So that's the brief background of what this is. And in the last week, we were in the second theme around, let me pull up my notes. Right. So we were around project growth and health as a team. And so would I want to open the stage for back members. Um, so so are there any gaps in our current project support that we need to address, like in terms of project growth or maybe in terms of health? I guess the topic that Dan brought up with respect to um, having health measured for specification project, that for sure is a gap. But I would like to hear from back members. Don't hear any on the project growth and health. So quick summary of what kind of things that went through in the nomination statements is that. So I saw there was a ask to have uh, best practices adopted right when the projects are proposed. If there is a way for us to optimize on that, at least we had like few projects coming in the last year, and I heard like there were gaps, and I wanted to hear, maybe do we have Kevin? So Kevin, I want to hear from you if there were any challenges when you brought in the project. Were there any gaps or were there any things that you faced could have been improved?
Yeah, I don't feel like there were any specific things. The one thing that was helpful to me is I asked for examples of well-written proposals, and I was given a couple that I thought fit the bill, and so I just sort of followed what seemed like best practices. Um, it was yeah, I think it was quite seamless as far as I was concerned.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, so I think that like the examples of what is responsive to like what is a good proposal, those were the most valuable things I had.
Understood. Sifting through, so I guess there was one more call out in terms of cross-project collaboration and avoiding redundancy. I want to hear from the TAC if this is the area that we should tackle for the year, and if so, do you have some suggestions on what that looks like? Kevin?
Is there anywhere where there is like a grid view or a table of all of the projects and some information about what area they're actually in, so we could try to figure out where to draw those connections?
Um, from my personal recollection, there was an attempt in the past, and I believe it's also currently available within the LFDT website. I'm not sure to what technical depth that would assist us, but at least it will tell us correlation between projects. I see David shared a link on that. Thank you. And it talks about what the project does and the relationship between, there was a grid view to this. I guess that's project metrics. Let me see. Yes.
Yeah,
So
Ruben, I'm getting that link too. So there's two things on the website. Sorry to jump in. There is that projects page that's very high level, but yeah, the matrix, I'm getting that matrix link as well. There you go. And this has a lot more detail. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Ray.
right. So Kevin, to answer on that question, we can definitely start from here and see what where can we go from there, and if this is an area that members feel like we should invest further, let's evaluate this. Marcus?
I'm just thinking maybe this is one question we could add in the quarterly reviews and ask the project if there are any collaboration between other projects or labs that we over the time can, I mean, uh, draw a picture, a detailed picture of how all those projects are connected to each other, how they align, how you basically as an end user could maybe, if you build a bigger application, take maybe this project, put it together with this other project. Maybe this is something we could ask to put as a question to get this information in the reports.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, I liked Marcus's suggestion, and I wondered if this was an activity that actually fits into the maintainer days next week. That post-it notes on a whiteboard for every project, and then an attempt with the project maintainers to draw connections between them.
Yeah. This is Diane. It would be interesting to see sort of a dependency map of, like, say, Hyro and what other projects it's of these that and how they're interrelated, as well as for all of them. So, because I know Besu is one, and there's other things that we use as well, more than the landscape diagram that you've just shown.
Thank you, Dan. I see David raising a hand as well. David?
Yeah, just to follow up, Kevin, absolutely. We do have part of the agenda for next week is what we're calling a ecosystem mapping discussion. We were going to use the identity projects as an example, but I think, that's just one thing that we could look at in terms of identifying connections between things. I think the concept of mapping really could apply very broadly. I mean, our thought was to start there on the identity side, but if there's interest from the TAC, I think we could do all sorts of mapping exercises. There is this, it's an older doc at this point, but I did also drop a link to this. This was created at this point, even maybe 2.5 years ago or so. This was a exercise from Fabric maintainers to map the Fabric ecosystem, because Fabric is larger than just the Fabric project, because there's a lot of stuff in labs, for example. There's a lot of other projects like Bevel and others that relate to Fabric. So there's kind of Fabric and then this larger Fabric ecosystem. And this was in our attempt to try to pull those dots together. So this could be an interesting, thing to look at as well. Is something like this valuable for the TAC to, apply in other places, right? But yes, this will be a discussion next week for sure.
David? Yeah, that's a good input for the maintainer day session, and for sure, I believe, like, as an outcome of those sessions, if we have action items, we can include them in the goals for this year. And I do see one more suggestions in the same theme around project growth. There was an ask to strengthen the maturity of the ecosystem based on successful project examples like IRO graduation. I wanted to hear if there is anything in terms of that we should put up as an example, like this is what the project team followed, or is there anything that stands out? Don't hear on that topic. So that's pretty much the areas that I saw under project growth and health. So let's move to the knowledge sharing and technical leadership aspect. And this was another common theme that I came across, which I felt like needs attention. And this was called out across like multiple TAC members, that there were many suggestions within this scope, right? There was asked for writing white papers, publishing knowledge articles, creating cross-project learning and insights kind of a program, and sharing experiences from enterprises adoption, and like providing guidance for technical decision making. Um, like there were suggestions in terms of should we put up something out which makes it a framework for technical decision making when it comes to creating or like designing a blockchain protocol, or like how do we evaluate consensus or make decisions around that, or even the new areas like privacy preserving technologies. So these were some of the topics that I came across uh, within the segment. I know there's a lot that we are processing here, that there's a lot that we can do, but I want to hear from TAC members and what you think are the areas that we should prioritize and tackle. So just to give an idea of what this looks like is, I did see like in the past, we had proposals of creating some knowledge videos for new maintainers or for new contributors. And like in the same category, what I see this time is pretty much TAC members would be interested in publishing articles and writing those white papers, knowledge articles, and explainers, right? Um, any thoughts around that?
So I know in under Hyro, we're doing a lot of work around onboarding new and newly engaged people and contributors. And we've all heard from Sophie in the past, but one of the key pieces is creating that more training material. So that's an initiative that we're undertaking under Hyro, but I think there's also things we could do at the LFDT level for, especially once we get the stack and explain how the whole stack works together. That might be a training or at least a video that we could put out that explains how all or many of the LFDT projects work together, because that's often, something that's mystifying for newbies.
Thank you, Diane. I'm sure like if some of those knowledge articles are common for all the projects, we can expose them to make it very generic for all the projects. So one of the things that still catches my attention personally is in terms of cross-project learning and sharing insights. Is there anything that we can do in making that a reality, or like in enhancing that possibility? See, don't hear any. So question to the TAC members: do you see a gap, or do you see a possibility uh, for this community to bring in projects or people who can create guides on, like this was other thing that I saw in the proposals. Do you see a possibility where we can bring in people to create guide on blockchain protocols, or put up a framework for how to evaluate those protocols? How do we measure privacy, or um, the consensus or the interoperability part? I know some of that work, at least in the interoperability side, happens within the projects for now. But do do you see any gaps or areas that we can improve in this segment? I'll take it as no. Okay. I do see Marcus raising hand. Marcus?
Yeah, let me share my thoughts here. I mean, I'm not really sure if I can answer your question if I see a gap that the community basically has to be better in, I mean, producing those videos or, I mean, more knowledge in an easier to share way. And I'm thinking about this. So we have quite a few projects which are big, which already have really good documentation. But at the same time, those projects maybe suffered the loss of a few maintainers recently. And now the existing maintainers, basically, they have to burn to maintain the code, but also, I mean, creating new documentation, creating new videos with about new feature updates or whatever. And I'm wondering if this is, if that's a problem, how a project with, let's say, only little manpower can do all sorts of relevant things in order to have this healthy project environment. I mean, maintaining the code base, advertising it, do proper governance, things like that.
Thanks, Marcus. Are you suggesting that we need to put up some framework around how can, when project teams have loss of maintainers, what can they do? Where can they focus so that they regain the strength?
I'm not sure if we need to come up with a framework if that's needed, but so, I mean, the thought I have is that maybe we should ask ourselves, and when we evaluate the reports and seek out to the community, sit in the community calls, if we recognize that there is an issue about those knowledge sharing, if we think, okay, I don't know, if you tomorrow jump into whatever community meeting of whatever project, and then you listen in there and realize, okay, it seems that there is a gap in knowledge you have for this project, it might be okay. But if you also notice that if you then try to close the gap by looking into the web page or try to figure out something, you are then figuring out, well, there's definitely space for improvement. And then we could basically see if this is a pattern across different projects. And then we can speak again if multiple people notice that, well, is there a need to set up a framework to improve the situation?
Thank you, Marcus. That's a good suggestion. I like that idea of identifying the pattern and see if that's an area we should focus. Okay. So let's go to the next theme that we have, which is around community engagement and collaboration. So the things that I came across from this particular theme is we had things proposed such as like reviving regional engagement and having more inclusive collaboration. Could be like having participation from other geographies, from the ones that the project maintainers are currently located in, having like additional language supported documents if needed for the projects, and onboarding those new members at different experience levels, and maybe even having collaboration between projects and contributors in that geography or in that time zone. And the other thing that I came across was just like having opportunities to represent LFTT in broader ecosystem events and conferences. So any thoughts or things that we should focus, or items that we should focus on this segment or in this area? I'd like to maybe like divide this in two parts, right? Maybe first part is more on the project, like preparing projects so that they can attract contributions from other geographies. Would you like to have participation from other geographies, maybe like create documentations or make project available for them in the language of their preference?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. But how do we resource such things? Say, for example, a project needed some support to have multi-language documentation. Like how would that work in reality?
That's a good question. So in the past,
Arun, Arun, this is Diane. That it might be if, and what springs to my mind is using the mentorship programs too, as a way to that, because there is some small funding available through the mentorship programs. And if we had a task for a section of documentation that we wanted translated or available, we could run it through as a mentorship opportunity.
Okay.
thank you, Diane. Right, I wanted to say the same thing. In the past, project teams have relied on mentorship programs in creating those documentations. And the other thing that I have seen is project teams have reached out to regional chapters. At least that's what I saw when there was like Hyperledger as a name. So those regional chapters, they had their own communities in creating these documentations. I see David raising a hand as well.
Well, I didn't mean to cut you off, Arun. I mean, please, if you had more to say. I mean, you certainly are very familiar with the regional community efforts in the past. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go on. Yeah, those are the 2 points I wanted to say.
I mean, I think the documentation is a good example because I think we do have a nice history there to look back on. A limited history for sure. I think there was a point in time when one of the projects in the community had an effort to really leverage people in the community to translate material into different languages. So I think it just shows that these things, if there's a priority for a project, in this case, we're using the example of translating documentation, I think there are ways to leverage communities to do that. I think we have the benefit of leveraging all this history of, what works well in open source. And I think translation is a good example of something that there is a lot of history, not even just within the Linux Foundation decentralized trust, but just across projects, open source projects in general. I think there are ways that you could leverage community members. We're a global, worldwide community, and people want to help. We, as Arun was saying, we have really active communities today. In Brazil, for example, they're doing stuff in Portuguese almost every month. They're doing some sort of Portuguese activity. The Japanese group has been very active. So I think this is maybe a good example. If there is a resource need from a project, we could explore how to leverage the community to, get those resources. And that's not always going to be.
I think David dropped. I thought it was me.
No, I was here. I was just done. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, I didn't have anything else to share. I think I was just sharing that link to the old wiki where this activity was happening. And the fact that it's still on the old wiki shows that it's not current. We didn't move it over to the LFDT wiki because, it wasn't something that was being pursued anymore actively by the project that had, been doing it in the past. But again, I think that the history is there and it might be interesting to look at. And it was, you can see there's quite a number of languages that, got started on, doing that translation work, and some got further than others. I think the Japanese one was maybe the one that got furthest along. And uh, um, but anyway, I mean, this is an example. I mean, if a project needs resources, I would just say broadly speaking, let's explore how to leverage community members to, find those resources.
Sounds good. Thank you, David. For sure, this is an area we can relook into with new projects coming in. I'm sure there's perceived interest in this goal. So with that, maybe I'll move to the next theme that we have that we see, and this is mostly around governance and transparency. And in one of the topics that I wanted to bring up within the segment was mostly, let's say, for conversation starters. I know in the past we worked on contributor ladder task force. I wanted to hear if there is an actionable item for us that we can take up further from that.
Well, I'll just give a quick update. I have paused the meetings for the contributor ladder for the time being while I've got some health and family stuff that I have to deal with. But we probably will in February try and reboot it again and restart it. But once we get that work done, I think the key pieces that I would want to focus on were incorporating some of the good first issues and the follow-on engagement and training stuff for new contributors and new participants in 2026. The other topic that I'm interested in teasing out a little bit is maybe clearing up some of the FUD around Gen AI adoption by maintainers and contributors both, and having some best practices for using AI tools incorporated in there. But that was just my thoughts off the cuff here. And I'm working on a potential little article on the positive things about using some of the Gen AI tools, and as well as how to mitigate some of the issues for maintainers having to deal with having more contributions. Sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's not, but that's kind of what the focus I think might be for 2026.
Thank you, Ryan. I also see a comment from Kanchan. It's a great idea for sure. This is one of the areas that I think we should all look into for this year for sure, and see how can we leverage the new tools available, especially around Gen AI, and see what benefits can we gain from those within the community or within this ecosystem. I would also look forward to seeing if project teams have anything to share in the success things. I mean, the success metrics or anything that they were able to achieve as a best practice from within the project, in that you would like to bring up and maybe communicate it to the broader community. That would be a great. So I did take a note of the task force, the continuation aspect of it. We'll have that in the goal for this year. So before we move to the next theme, any other aspects from this theme that we should evaluate further? Any thoughts on if we further need to invest in making project evaluation more objective, or do you think we have reached the stage the maintainers have good understanding of how the projects are going to be evaluated? Any thoughts on that? Rama, I know like I'm nitpicking you, but because you were closely involved in that segment in the past. So do you have any thoughts on that? If we should continue investing in
I think we should uh, think about it. I don't exactly recall what we agreed a few months ago, but we did revise some of the life cycle transition guidelines or criteria because some of them, I think the LFX Insights was not really giving uh, doing a good assessment on particular metrics. So we decided to remove those criteria. And the rest of it, I think uh, materials will have to, I think, keep trying to, whenever they submit reviews, especially the annual reviews, they should look at the criteria and see whether or not they met those criteria. And if not, for good reason, like the maybe some of those criteria don't are not salient anymore or they don't make sense, then maybe they can bring that up to the TAC, and then we can evaluate how to uh, modify those assessment guidelines. So that's the best I can say right now. I think one thing I noticed last year was at least some of the newer projects had not uh, set the openness badges, the scorecard badges. So that I think was a basic criterion that we established that all the projects had to fulfill. But I think different maintainers were. Uh, uh, I think they said that they would take it up in the next quarter. So maybe that's something we can push on. Only when the different projects try to at least um, uh, set the scorecards on their repos, and then we see whether or not they are able to meet the particular scores that we have specified in the life cycle evaluation guidelines. Then we'll know whether or not those the criteria that we've listed make sense or not. It made sense when we were brainstorming it back 2 years ago when we had the life cycle task force. But I don't know if how much they need to be revised. So I think at least for a start, I would just have all the communicate to the various maintainers of all the projects that they need to have these scorecards enabled on their repositories, and then if they feel that particular criteria are not useful, then they should bring it to our attention. Does that work for now? I think this is a work in progress.
Sure, Rama. Thank you for that insight. I agree. I sure. I think we'll get to know about those hopefully soon as we have closed review of all the projects during our annual reviews, and we'll get to know what other actions are pending on. I mean, what action should we take based on what we observe. Okay, so with that, maybe I'll jump to the next theme area, which I found intriguing, and I think this is where we should have a hard look at. as well in terms of vision and the innovation. Um, and like Diane just called out, one of the areas was around GenAI adaptability from project governance to project maintenance, and how do we just make the life better at the same time, uh, like make the project maintainers adopt or like gain advantage of all these new utilities and tools they have for use. I wanted to understand from the TAC if there are any other areas from innovation aspect that we should invest closely. For instance, I know like there are few things that we can start looking into in terms of the basic things, which in the past we have heard project teams questioning, like they did not want the CI process to run if the commits did not meet certain basic criteria, or especially around new contributors. We don't know if they are genuine contributors or somebody impersonating something just to block resources or cloud resources. I'm sure we can use GenAI tools to improvise some of those aspects. But yeah, any other thoughts or comments on that, Dan? I guess you have something.
I always have something. I, in terms of 2026, I think the big missing piece from besides the just some best practices around adopting AI tools for contributors and maintainers. I'm still stuck on collaborating with the LFX Insights team to see if we can't get the reporting that we need out of them for metricing projects and seeing where there is connectivity between projects. So I know that is something that is near and dear to my heart and is kind of missing at the moment. So it may be not technical, it may not be innovative, but it's definitely something that's missing for me in what we have access to as LF and LFDT. And I'd really like to see if we can't get the LF Insights team, maybe spend some time at the Maintainer Summit talking about what we need to do to improve that and what maintainers need. And then bringing that back and maybe the following week or have the LFX team come to one of our meetings. I think for me, that's top of mind still and has been most of 2025 too. So those are the two areas that I'm most concerned with in terms of ensuring that we've got the diversity in our projects and the adoption of our projects.
Okay, Dan. I know we are on top of the hours, and so I'll summarize all the notes so far that we have collected, and if you have more inputs on the areas that we should focus this year, please do leave a comment either on Discord or on the GitHub or even this tool. And once we have the collective summary, we'll come up with the goals for this year collectively.
So Arun, I would sneak one more in if I can, if no one else is how we identify human contributions versus AI contributions. And there's some work being done in the Trust over IP group, as well as other folks are looking at it as well. So I think that would be another thing that would be really helpful for us to be able to understand better what's available and how we tag contributions as whether which tools they're using is one simple way, but also just how you tell what's an AI agent versus what's a human. And I think the Trust over IP, that might be a nice way to engage with them and bring them in.
Thank you, Dan. I definitely agree. I guess on the same lines, how do we qualify those contributions? the code that is generated? What if it, I guess the question is like, what if it infringes upon something that does not adhere to the licensing policies that we have, right? I guess those are some of the tougher questions. Yeah, I'll make a note of this as well. So we will conclude the meeting for today, and please do leave your comments or notes on goals for this year, and we'll accumulate all of them and come up collectively for the goals that we should work towards. Looking forward to all inputs from you. Thank you again, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for this. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.